All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We are recording on Thursday morning-ish, and we're going to talk about the NBA, some futures markets to miss the playoffs, the playoff bubble in the East and the West, and then we'll talk about the Friday NCAA tournament games before tip-off, including if Alabama can be upset by Charleston. All right, Drew, let's start with the Eastern Conference in the NBA and the play-in markets. What's your sense of who is ultimately going to fall into the 7 through 10?
Well, we are in an interesting time in the schedule because there's a very serious imbalance in the level of effort you're getting from teams right now. We talked about this a little bit on Monday's podcast, but teams like the Raptors, are they really giving you an honest effort to win? Not necessarily seeing it out there. Just again, like outside of maybe the Spurs and kind of weirdly the Grizzlies, all of the teams that have like completely fallen out of the picture for the play-in are kind of in draft position tank mode. So, I think ultimately the imbalance in schedule in terms of opponents that you face between now and the end of the season is sort of the only way to kind of build in a real advantage on this particular market. As you kind of look at the East, the huge question really comes down to who of, at least in my opinion, who of Indiana, Miami, and Philadelphia get into that sixth spot. Right now, there's a half-game lead for the Pacers over the Heat and the Sixers, but that feels extremely tenuous. Right now, it's worth noting that the Pacers do have pretty average schedule from here on in. They get one game against the Raptors, 2 against the Nets. And that's about it in terms of teams that you are expecting to give you somewhat of a weak effort. Otherwise, they are playing teams that are playing for either playoff positioning or just sharpening their sword, getting ready for the playoffs. So Pacers could very well fall out of the mix here. And I think whoever ends up playing more, I guess whoever is healthier really and is playing better basketball down the stretch between Philadelphia and Miami, I think is very live to move up into that sixth spot. So right now the market thinks that's going to be the Heat. And if you watched the Heat last night for certain portions of that game, I could see why. Jimmy Butler certainly felt like he was in playoff mode in general. And I think, Bam will ultimately come back and is, that duo themselves should be enough to be competitive in their remaining games. Miami is kind of at the very bottom in terms of difficulty of remaining schedules. They get the Wizards, they get the Blazers, they get 2 against the Raptors. So right there, you're looking at kind of a couple of banked wins relative to the schedule that the Pacers have remaining. I don't see a ton of likelihood that Joel Embiid makes a grand return and that you see kind of the peak December, January Sixers playing basketball in the month of March, maybe by the time we get to April, but I think it's going to be a little bit more of a slow ramp up from him with lots of load management and with lots of, just kind of figuring things out. So I kind of agree with the market here. It's going to be the Heat in the 6. And I think ultimately you're going to have Indiana and Philadelphia fighting it out for 7 and 8.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those teams are a mess at the moment. I've watched a lot of these 3 teams lately. There's just something wrong with the Pacers. Halliburton doesn't seem right. He's probably still dealing with the hamstring. And ironically, if that's the right word, I mean, he's seemingly pushing it to get to all NBA, but the team is so blah and he's not playing great that he may not make all NBA. I mean, I think he still probably will, but it's in a bit of strife with the way he's been playing for a couple of months now. The Heat against the Cavs, they started the 3 following players. The Miami Heat, who made the finals last year and were tied 1-1 going back to Miami. They started Patty Mills, who wasn't on the team like a couple of weeks ago. They started Nikola Jovic, and they started Thomas Bryant. And they still managed to beat the Cavs, who have no offense whatsoever when Donovan Mitchell is out. And so the Heat, Duncan Robinson, he left the game against Philly with his back injury, wasn't able to play against Cleveland. That's a concern. Bam seems more of a niggling injury for him. But the fact that I think it's a big deal that Tyler Hero is just out. Like he's just out for a couple of weeks. Like they don't have much creation. They're relying, if it's not Jimmy going to work like he did against Cleveland, then it's like Terry Rozier creating and hitting step back threes, which he's done of late. But the team's just not very good, but they do have the easiest schedule. So I do think they are the team most likely to get out of the play-in. Then you have the Pacers, who are just going to blah and trucking along. And then you have the Sixers, who won a couple of games against Charlotte and Miami without Jimmy. But I watched the game against Phoenix on Wednesday night. Like, they've just got nothing. Like, the team has nothing. Like, now that teams have figured out that, okay, every time Tyrese Maxey is involved, whenever he brings up a screener, they're just sending two to him, and then he just has to pass, and then like Nick Batum and Kelly Oubre need to create and do stuff. They just have nothing defensively. The fact that Melton and Covington are out, I think, is actually a big deal in addition to Embiid, and they're just drawing dead in these games. And I think the thing with Embiid, who, if you think that he is a savior to come back, the problem is with their schedule is that, so the book on Embiid right now is back first or second week of April, but they have only 5 games in the last 11 days of the season, and one of those is a back-to-back. Like, Embiid's not playing back-to-backs when he comes back. So I think he's going to come back for like 4 games, and at that point, I think they're probably consigned to the play-in.
Yeah, you're reading my notes, man. They got, especially interesting. They do finish with 3 at home: Pistons, Magic, Nets, and they do have ample spacing between those games. So I think they're staring at that 3 as like, okay, here's your ramp up, and then you're going to full 40 in that play. Because I mean, I don't know, like the decision making here. If he was going to come back in April, and if they knew that they weren't going to see him play in March, I really kind of don't understand why they make the trade for Hield, why they don't just have him fix his knee for long term, as opposed to whatever, it's kind of a Band-Aid effectively they went with. But it's unlikely that he plays in that Spurs game. I think, realistically, on the road against the Grizzlies is probably his grand return, and then he plays the last 3 of the regular season, and then we see him in the play-in. So, your points about the rest of the Sixers and just in general how that team is falling apart. Like, I mean, this was kind of, the writing was on the wall. He is such a humongous part of that offense and carries so much of the load. When you redistribute that on smaller players, they just break down. And you see it time and again with some way some of these teams are constructed, and trying to pass the baton to the the supporting players who are guards. And it's tough to watch because Nick Nurse was doing such an incredible job to start the season, and it really felt like, wow, this team might actually be the second best in the East when it's all said and done. And right now it feels like they're probably going to be, assuming they win their matchup against we'll say the Pacers. Let's say it's 7-8 in Indiana. I would still favor an Embiid healthy-ish Sixers team in that spot. And at that point, if you draw the Bucks in a 2-7 matchup, you can win a couple games, but I don't think realistically a first-round playoff upset is all that likely, given your matchup issues with or just your inability to take advantage of the key weaknesses with the Bucks and their point of attack defense. So we'll see ultimately if that change, if the picture changes. I think the entertainment gods, I would love to see the Sixers find their way into the 8 seed. Celtics Sixers first round series would just be more entertaining than Sixers Bucks, I think. But I'm pretty sure 7-8 is going to be Indiana Philly.
Yep, I agree. I've been watching a lot of Sixers lately because, as we've talked about, I'm largely against Maxey in this most improved player market, and just watching them each night and watching Maxey specifically, and as it relates to this market, like, it is so hard for him to be able, his shot diet is just impossible because, like I said, he's seeing 2 a ton, so he just has to pass out of it and then he's not involved. His scoring as well, like in the half court, like, he's never been a particularly nuanced player. It's either, step back jumper or just accelerate with his insane speed to the rim. But what is happening is, okay, well, he can't really use screens to score because then they're going to send 2. So he's got to ISO at the top of the key and then take a step back. Or when he drives, then everyone's just collapsing on him. And then he's going to kick it out, and the opposition is going to live with Nick Batum shooting a 3 or creating. So he doesn't really get like easy shots at the rim. And so it's all step back jumpers or just driving into traffic. So it's very difficult for him. Against the Suns, he scored 6 points in the game. He was 3 of 13. 0 of 4 from 3. Just couldn't get anything going. His scoring average on the night, just one game, dropped from 26.1 points per game to 25.7. True shooting percentage dropped off a few decimals. I don't really see how he's going to score like 30 a game efficiently when he's taking this type of shot diet. Now, he could just run hot and he could just make every step back jumper, certainly. But the way their schedule breaks down, and I think this is really bad for Maxey, is that here's what's upcoming for them. At Lakers, at Clippers, at Kings on a back-to-back, home Clippers, at Cavs, Mitchell should be back by then, at Toronto, that's your easy one, then OKC, at Miami. Like, that is a brutal stretch. They're going to be dogs in every single one of those games except for Toronto. And I think they're at a rest disadvantage or neutral in every single one of those games too. So it's a brutal stretch for them. And then by the time Embiid comes back, I think they're going to be in the 8 or like well gone from the top 6. And then at that point, the narrative for Maxey is like, all right, well, right now they're 12-23 without Joel Embiid. And I think that's going to get worse. And then Embiid comes back and then he helps them win a couple games at the end. Like, how does that help Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah, I know. Agree with you. I guess I didn't really. I spent most of my time looking at the Heat schedule because, spoiler alert, I have a big old bet on Magic to win the Southeast, and the correction has been violent and it's been awesome. I've been loving it. But Heat have 6 of their next 7 at home. You got a lot of teams that are kind of locked into playoff position that are heading down to Miami for a little spring break, and then they finish their season. Schedule makers. The Raptors are at Heat the final 2 games of the season. Like, what in the world is going on here? Like, there's definitely chance for the Heat to finish like, I don't know, we'll say 12 out of 15 or something like that. Like, it's, or 12, they could finish the season hot, which would spook me a little bit as a Magic ticket holder. That said, the Philadelphia schedule is so aggressively difficult between now and when we actually see Embiid again. Do you think there is any scope for Chicago to run them down for the 8? Like, could Philadelphia be hosting the 9-10 against Atlanta?
That's I'm not sure the Bulls, as someone who's watched a lot of Bulls basketball lately, the fact that they were up like 25 against Portland and then were trailing with 3 minutes to go before DeRozan put his cape on like he does every night in the clutch. It is insane.
Are they doing that on purpose?
I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I just think they're just by nature not very good. But they do play hard. Give the Bulls credit. I mean, the Bulls were 5-14, and now, as we're recording, they're 34-35. As we're recording, they're 4-point dogs in Houston, which isn't a great sign.
Not good.
I know the Rockets are playing well, and I know that White and Caruso are questionable, but still, the Bulls aren't very good. I don't think they have what it takes to chase down the Sixers, but the Sixers could just lose all of these games. Like, they're going to be dogs, particularly this West Coast stand. Like, the Lakers have played once in a week and are about to have a massive rest advantage on Friday against the Sixers, and then they got to play the Kings on a back-to-back in Sacramento. So certainly they could spiral a little bit.
Let's make a plan. Bulls win or lose to Rockets. I assume they lose. And then they host the Celtics, which is, on NBA TV on the 23rd. That's probably a loss. Sure. Then they host the Wizards and the Pacers, at the Nets, at the T-Wolves, host the Hawks, and then down the stretch they got a couple of relatively soft road games at Pistons, at Wizards. I think maybe the right call is, after that Celtics loss, Sixers to miss is probably going to be a bet. Just in case, because the Bulls I don't think the Bulls are necessarily beating them, in a lot of head to heads in the play-in. I would certainly make them dogs, but they might be hosting for that 8 seed. And if the Sixers fall into the 9 seed, and that looks possible the way I'm looking at the rest of their schedule, then all of a sudden, one bad game against the Hawks and you're done. And that might actually be a pretty favorable price. So Sixers to miss is very much on my radar right now.
Yep, I like that. I will say that if you want to, I guess, bet the Bulls finishing above the Sixers, I think the best proxy way to do that is just to bet Kobe White to win Most Improved Player because he's not losing. I think it's massive value anyway at anything that's plus odds. And if he finishes above Maxey in the standings, then I think that's pretty much a wrap. And the good thing with the Bulls and with White is that their schedule, they just have these like little littered in through the hard games. It's like, oh, they go at Houston, home Boston, but then they get home Washington and then home Indy and at Brooklyn and then tough game at Minnesota, then home Atlanta, and then they have Detroit and Washington games mixed into the last week. So they should kind of cruise to, I don't know, what are they going to be, like 39 and 43 or something like that, and they should finish solidly, and maybe they go past Philly if Philly absolutely collapse, which they might. All right, we're closing in on opening day, Drew, but it's never too late to squeeze in another draft. So for those cramming before the regular season begins, grab your RotoWorld Baseball Draft Guide. It's loaded with comprehensive positional rankings, projections, and player profiles to ensure your draft is a success. Visit NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code baseball24 to get 10% off at checkout. All right, Western Conference, which is, I guess, more interesting in terms of its relevance to, who is actually going to win the conference, given that these teams like the Pelicans, Mavericks, Suns, Lakers, Warriors, I think in a nutshell, they're just better than the Pacers, the Sixers in their current iteration, and the Heat. What are you looking for in terms of play-in pricing, make-miss playoffs?
Yeah, there's a couple that stand out. Just kind of an interesting note here. At faraway places, it's tough to make bets on this stuff. So I don't know that really what you could see in terms of prices reflect reality all that much. I think they're kind of soft. But in faraway places, you could have bet on the Lakers for like the last month. That's like the one weird random one that they decided to hang and take big bets on. And waking up every day and watching that thing fluctuate from minus 200 to plus 200, because it has been one of the more violent and fun markets to watch over the last month, if among anything in the NBA, because the Lakers, win or lose, like have really, really kind of shuffled their likelihood aggressively. And right now, with the way that they're playing, they're clearly on the outside looking in. They're going to have to play their way in with 2 wins. Getting to the 8 seems very unlikely. Although Suns are not playing especially good basketball, even though they're healthy. And the Suns have virtually no gimmies left. None. Every game left on their schedule is going to be pretty competitive. I'm assuming that those 2 games that they play the Spurs, you're going to have Wemby in there. And if Wemby is available, then, all bets are off that's going to be a gimme. So the Suns are kind of the team that I have circled here. 4 weeks ago or so, we talked about this, where the Suns were, something like 4-1, 5-1 to miss the playoffs entirely. That's come into about plus 260. And I think ultimately that's going to keep getting smaller. The Suns are going to find their way into that plan almost certainly. I really, really do not see how all of a sudden they flip some switch and this is now a team that is sitting comfortably in the 6th seed. To me, at least, the way that I look at seeding right now, the top 4 are pretty much in pen. Even though the Clippers look determined to play their way down the standings, I think they'll still land in the 4 seed. And then the 5 seed is almost certainly going to be the Pelicans. Nothing much that you can kind of craft in terms of a narrative that the Pelicans are going to slide at this point. So I think ultimately your top 5 realistically are locked in. And so there is a battle now between Dallas, Phoenix, and Kings to get that 6th seed. The Kings continue to find ways to win games, even though they are playing poorly at times. And they are, the bane of my existence because I have a decent bet on them to miss the playoffs. I think I'm about to give up on that. I think they're probably just going to get in. But I think they're going to have to play their way in because Dallas, the way they're playing right now, I'm not just keying on the one win they had against the Nuggets, which was pretty special, but just in general, their ability to find different ways to get it done in clutch is pretty compelling. And I think, they make every game interesting, but I think they're going to get enough done here to pass the Kings and be ultimately safely in the playoffs as your 6th seed, which means you're going to probably have Kings versus the Suns for one playoff spot, and then the loser will have to take on the winner of Lakers Warriors. The stratification there looks pretty clear to me. I don't think 9 and 10 is changing, and it's just a matter of where that game is played, and I think the Warriors are going to be favored either way.
Yep. To me, Phoenix are probably the most interesting team in the league, where in theory, when they get to the playoffs, they should have just about the biggest increase or benefit from a tightened rotation if they can just play 7 guys, because like the offense is remarkable. And watching them against Philly, and I know Philly aren't much, but like they just get good shots every single time down the court when they have their starting 5 out there, where they in Durant, Booker, and Beal, you have 3 guys who can all they obviously all lights out shooters who can drive and beat their man, and they can all pass. And then Grayson Allen is just like the perfect complementary offensive player who's leading the league in 3-point percentage. Just the guys like him are just so useful on like star-studded teams, just on offense at least. And then they've gotten this incredible season out of Nurkic, who I mean, I think he's like +3 by APM. He's been insane defensively. He's a really good, I guess, offensive just outlet because he's a good passer and he moves the ball. He crashes the glass. But then you just watch this team, and one, just defensively, there's just no ceiling on the team. They don't have, I mean, their like lockdown defender guarding Tyrese Maxey is like Bradley Beal. Like it doesn't really work. And they have Grayson Allen guarding Maxey for stretches. Like they have a similar problem to the Bucks, where it's like Malik Beasley is like your lockdown defensive player. Like he couldn't get on the court for the Lakers because of his defense. And now what, Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen are guarding the best guy on the other team. And they just do a lot of dumb stuff as well. I think they had like 14 turnovers in the first half. They just don't seem connected. But that team, like and I understand like it is very uphill for them. There's no value in their outright price because they're going to be on the road every series, and if you just roll over series prices, you're not going to get close. But if I was Denver, I would not want to see Phoenix in round 1. Just no. For the talent. What do you think of Phoenix's, I guess, just upside in general?
I mean, it exists, but it's price dependent, and we were kind of kicking around the idea that maybe they would put together some winning basketball against some good teams because they were healthy, and other teams were kind of locked in. And you could create a perception, you stew up a perception where, the Suns are feisty. The market has them overrated right now. And that if it in any way, shape, or form that rating rises because of impressive wins, then whatever price you get on a playoff series is almost certainly going to be value against the Suns. And so that was kind of my general hypothesis, but it still has to be proven out that they can win games against good teams who are, kind of going through the motions. So they closed last night with Grayson Allen, Booker, Durant, Beal, and Nurkic. Surprisingly, I did not know that they were going to use Nurkic in a closing role in a game that was relatively not in the balance, but at least kind of competitive. And they went on a 10-4 run over 5 minutes to 2 minutes, and they basically ended the game. And I think that was interesting because Nurkic is a very, very good defensive player, and if he can protect the rim and then kind of take a little bit of the pressure off the rest of that defense, then they could be pretty good. And I think Durant clearly still has more in the tank. Booker is is a superstar across the league without question, in my mind, and is pretty. He's melted into this kind of perfect both creator / create for himself / be the kind of entire engine when Durant's off the floor, and I think it's a valuable piece to have. So yeah, if I'm the Nuggets, I'm a little annoyed because you could very, very well be, regardless of where you land in the 2 or the 3 or even the 1 right now, you're going to draw a matchup in the first round that is much tougher than what you had to deal with last year, period. And be it the Mavs, if that's your 3-6, the Suns, if that's your 2-7, or the Warriors or Lakers, if that's your 1-8. I guess of all of those, you're happy taking on the Kings, you're happy taking on the Lakers, but the likelihood that you get that matchup is looking like a little bit of a dice roll right now. So I think looking at the Nuggets price in the futures market, I would be a bet against at price right now, just because I think their first round matchup is going to be tougher than the market thinks.
Yeah, just on the Suns and on that Philly game, because I watched every second of it. And so I'm about to go to sleep, and I'm watching on League Pass on my iPad, Suns Sixers by myself, obviously. And I'm just cheer. So the Suns are up like 26 with 10 minutes to go, and they've still got all their starters in because Vogel just wants to kill the game off because they've got a game the following day against Atlanta, and the Sixers have basically thrown in the towel, and they've got like Jeff Downton and KJ Martin and Ricky Council the fourth out there. So I'm like, all right, let's just score another 3. Let's just bump the lead up a little bit, and then Maxey is definitely not coming in for his stats for most improved. Let's just end this now, and then Ricky Council the fourth and Jeff Downton, they just go in berserk, and the Suns with their starting line just cannot contain them at all, and they get it down to 11. I'm like, are they going to bring Maxey back in after we're up 26 and had all of our starters in there, and KJ Martin, we just can't stop him, and Drew Eubanks comes in for a second, he starts getting technicals. Like, what is going on? This team just does so much dumb stuff, but at the same time, they can just rip off these 15-0 runs because they do have such insane offensive talent. So I also think that it's a weird matchup against Denver because Denver don't like the Suns have Nurkic for Jokic, which is a pretty good player to throw at Jokic. No one can stop Jokic, but at least Nurkic can make it a little harder for him. And in terms of the perimeter deficiencies, I don't think it matters as much against Denver because Jamal Murray just kind of, whoever you put on him, like just kind of takes tough shots anyway, as opposed to like, peak LeBron, where if you had someone like Grayson Allen just can't be on the court if LeBron is going to be out there in a playoff game because he's just going to bring him into a pick and roll every single time. So they are a strange team. Last thing before we move on to college, do you think there's any chance the Pelicans could win the West? Because they're 30-1 and they have the 4th best net rating in the NBA. They are surging at the moment and peaking. Zion is playing maybe the best he's ever played, at least since his All-Star season a couple of years ago. Seems to be kind of clicking into place for them, and they have a pretty good shot at getting a 4 seed.
Yeah, they can win. I don't know really why they are such a, what's the right word? Forgotten team in the West, right?
Their price is double Dallas's.
And
no sense at all.
If you've watched much Pelicans, none of this is fraudulent. Like, they have a really well-composed team. Like, their role players are much, much better than the Suns. Much better. Like, Suns, last saw the Suns on Sunday, they're up against the Giannis-less Bucks.
They closed Bucks.
Yeah, they closed with Royce O'Neal instead of Nurkic in that game because of size, obviously, and Jay Crowder is torching them. It's like, oh, great, great, good job, Suns. The Pelicans, their closing rotation is dynamite. You are getting just elite defense, just switchable elite defense from, so many of your components led by Herb Jones. You have just elite shooting on the floor with Trey Murphy. And Zion is a problem right now. He is physically fit. He is capable of playing 30-plus minutes a game every night. And yes, that should spook some teams in the West because it should certainly spook the Clippers, who seem to be just happy to take the 4 seed and take on this Pelicans squad. So yes, no, as a Clippers ticket holder, I am annoyed by how good the Pelicans are playing and how seemingly willing the Clippers are to take them on. They're a tough matchup. Like, there's no straightforward answer for how to stop them. I kind of don't care what level of the playoffs they're in and against what level of talent. That's going to be a 7-game series, I feel like, because it's going to take you a really long time to solve this squad the way that they're rostered and with all of the pieces that they have and all of the different combinations they can give you. Like, they're basically built perfectly to be just a absolute thorn come playoff time. And I think, I'd like to see them in some more high profile games because they really just haven't had, haven't had many against, really high level competition where we've gotten a sense of who they are. But the most recent one was against the Clippers and they just embarrassed that team. And I think, ultimately it's going to be pretty telling, how the market rates them because they do feel forgotten. But there's a lot to like.
Yep. Ultimately, I think they just don't quite have the high-end talent to actually win the West, and their relative high-end talent I just think is so redundant and not additive enough in terms of the skill sets of Zion and Ingram. They don't really accentuate it. They just don't have enough elite players, I think. And also they have a great deal of depth, which will get minimized a bit in the playoffs. But I mean, if the season ended today, their path to the Western Conference Finals is Clippers, then likely Thunder. Like that is, I think their size would give both of those teams a lot of issues. Neither of those teams can rebound, and New Orleans are just massive. So certainly one to watch. If the Clippers keep on falling and New Orleans is looking like they're going to get into the 4 seed, and OKC is maybe going to edge Denver for the 1, then that price I think should drop. All right, let's pivot to college and the March Madness games on Friday. Let's start with New Mexico against Clemson, Drew. New Mexico 2.5-point favorites against number 6 Clemson. Do you have anything on this game?
Yeah, I do. Played the first half under. It's a massive number, and this qualifies as one of the Wilson ball angles. Neither of these teams played with the Wilson all season, so I think ultimately they could find it tough to shoot early here. Interesting market because you've had, you have a 6 and 11 matchup in this bracket where the 6 seed BYU is almost double-digit favorites over the 11 seed Duquesne. And here you have an 11 seed New Mexico who is 2.5-point favorites now over Clemson. If you are scratching your head like, did Clemson's 3 most important players get hurt or something? No, this is just the advanced metrics, the efficiency metrics tell you that New Mexico is a top 25 team. I don't know that I see that personally. I'm kind of caught by surprise here because they have not played very many very good enough teams to warrant I think this level of competition. And depending on how you are how you are adjusting for strength of opponent, I actually make Clemson slightly better here. So if they New Mexico has caught the imagination of sort of the bracketologist public, I guess, in terms of this is my double-digit seed that I'm going to hook my wagon to get to the Sweet 16. Okay, good luck. I think ultimately there's a little bit of noise in some of their ratings that you're seeing across the major college basketball information space, and I think Clemson, albeit flawed in many ways, is still good enough to to get past this particular hurdle. And I think either one of these teams, the 3 seed, is going to be a tough matchup. So I'm not buying it. I think the market is completely oversold on Clemson here, and I think what you're going to get is probably a coin flippy game.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense to me. Let's go to number 10 Colorado against number 7 seed Florida. Florida are 1-point favorites. I've had a lot of people message me about Cody Williams lately, who comes off the bench and scored 0 points in the playing game, and looks like he's going to go like in the top 3 in the draft. I don't know enough about him to make any judgments, but it's just kind of that set of facts is a little bit weird. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, I had the exact same experience yesterday, which was people are buzzing like it's very likely, I think, that there are no college basketball players taken in the top 5 of the draft this year. I think you could very well have 3 international players and then 2 G League Ignite guys. And the guys that are being kicked around for top 5, Reed Shepherd from Kentucky, but size is an issue, obviously, at the NBA level for him, and Williams from Colorado as your number 1 college small forward. And I kind of picked up on this as we were coming into sort of the close here of the regular season, or of the regular season in college basketball, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll be sure to look out for Cody Williams. Let's get a look at this guy. And then yesterday I was looking, I'm like, where is he? I forgot his name, and I'm looking at the starters, and I'm like, which one was it again? The Colorado kid? Which one? And then look it up, be like, Cody Williams, and you're like, oh, he come off the bench, he playing this match. Like, what? Like, so I'm like truly perplexed. Whatever his skill set is that is expected to succeed at the NBA level, he's playing Bronny James type of role for this Colorado Buffalo team, which is a head scratcher. So I don't know. I have yet to see it, obviously, and I have yet to see it that the Colorado team is going to be competitive with Florida. Colorado was the beneficiaries of a miserable night of shooting from Boise State, and just in general, like weren't ready to be their type of performance. And I think ultimately Florida is on a completely another level. I thought this was going to open at 2.5 and get bet in the direction of Florida. The fact that you can get Florida at -1 right now feels like an absolute steal. Florida has a couple of like telltale issues that I don't love them making a deep run in this tournament. And in general, like you can point to their defense and be like, it's good, not great. So Colorado should have some, angle of attack here to, at least be competitive from a scoring standpoint. But Florida's offense is very good. And honestly, Colorado just doesn't take enough 3-pointers. They're at the point now where, I think they're relying much too heavily on the 2. And I think if your defense is somewhat predictable, and Florida has very good scouting department, I would expect that the Gators are prepared and can put Colorado in a box, and I think they're the right bet here at -1.
Okay, go Gators. Last game before we get out of here, number 13, Charleston up against 4 seed Alabama. Alabama are 9.5-point favorites, total monstrous 173. Alabama cost me a lot of money this year, Drew, with actually both their football and basketball programs cost me a lot of money, particularly the football program, but the basketball one as well, where it just completely melted against Tennessee to blow the SEC regular season title up 7 at home with like 8 minutes left, and then just got destroyed by your man Dalton Knecht. Do you think that they cover in this one?
Yeah, Dalton Knecht. You want to take a swing on a college player to fill out a specific role on a contending team. Dalton Knecht is your guy. Alabama is a weird one. They are defense optional. They have one of the kind of standout lowest defensive efficiencies among the teams that got favorable seeds in this tournament. But they're elite offensively. And actually, like their entire profile is kind of like College of Charleston is a little bit like Alabama Junior in terms of what they're good and bad at, which is why you have this absolutely astronomical total. It is notable that in general, College of Charleston doesn't take as many threes to really support, this kind of just expectation that they're going to be competitive, but they are very good at making those threes. So if there's a world where College of Charleston has spent the last 10 days, they last played on March 12th, there's a world where they spent their last 10 days really being like, look guys, like our chance to win here is just jack threes. We're good at making them. Let's have at it. If that's the approach they come out with, they're live to win this game. And I think this is one of the games where if you want a piece of the dog, forget the points, just take the money line, because it's going to come down to Charleston's threes going in or not. If they go in, Alabama does not have the defense that can create turnovers, that can give them extra possessions, that can close the gap. If they are not going in, then Alabama could literally run them off the floor. So it is a weird handicap because of the huge, the rest versus rust issue here with College of Charleston. College of Charleston, by the way, has not lost since February 1st. It's a good team, but they also suffer from the same issues we mentioned with New Mexico, where they just haven't had an especially strong strength of schedule. So, this could be a rude awakening for them. Or if they hopefully do the right thing and just take 45 threes in this game, then they could win.
Okay. College Charleston plus 375 on the money line to take down my much hated Alabama. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you next week.